Roman gladiators were one of the fiercest warriors in the Roman Empire. Even though they were slaves, they trained most days, and usually during battles they represented the enemies of the empire. The life of a Roman gladiator in the Roman Empire was full of luxuries and intense training. A gladiator was a warrior who entertained audiences in the Roman Empire in violent battles with other gladiators, wild animals, and criminals. Some gladiators were volunteers who risked their legal and social status and their lives by appearing in the arena. Most were treated as slaves, kept under harsh conditions, and socially insignificant. The origin of the gladiator game is unclear. However, there is evidence of it during the Punic Wars. After the Punic Wars, it became an essential feature of politics and social life in the Roman world. Its popularity led the game to cost more money, and more spectators showed up every game. Gladiators offered spectators an example of Rome's ethics in battle and could inspire admiration by most people. Roman emperors valued gladiators highly because they helped the economy greatly as entertainers throughout the Roman Empire. Gladiator games lasted for nearly 1,000 years. However, the games finally declined during the 5th century after the adoption of Christianity as the main religion of the Roman Empire. A gladiator's training was usually made up by using wooden swords that weighed twice as much as a regular sword, and this helped them require a lot of upper body strength. After they trained enough, they would skirmish against other gladiators using this wooden sword, also known as a rudis. They did not only train with it, but the rudis also symbolized freedom and their liberty as a free citizen after they won enough battles. Gladiators trained in private schools, owned by private owners. However, later the empire became owners of their schools because they feared citizens who owned these schools would create a private army with the gladiators they trained, and would start a revolution against the empire. More than 100 gladiator schools were built in the Roman Empire, but only 3 have been found in Pompeii, Rome, and Carthage. The schools in Carthage was mainly underground and designed like a prison, where gladiators had cells in which they lived. The gladiators were allowed to choose their own armor and weapons, depending on what best suited them.
I know that I did you wrong.
Surviving as a gladiator was not pleasant. Even if they survived all the battles, they could still experience trauma or some kind of significant injury. Most gladiators survived battles. Since they were expensive to house, feed, and train, the people who maintained them usually prefer to keep them alive. Trainers taught gladiators to wound and not kill other warriors, and gladiators usually took it personally not to kill the other warrior. Even with all these precautions to not end the gladiator's life prematurely, most gladiators only lived into their 20s. Every 1 in 10 battles, a gladiator was killed. Not all gladiators were fighting with swords though. Some also boxed, but used metal gloves to increase the cutting and bleeding so audiences would enjoy it more. As cruel as this sounds, they were willing to risk their life for the possibility of achieving ultimate fame and glory. Some battles included animals. Usually a hungry animal fought on other hungry animals, but sometimes, and very rarely, a gladiator fought a wild beast in an event called Venationes, a wild beast hunt. There was one event that was even more rare. A convicted criminal who had been sentenced to death was tied to a wooden stake and removed above his clothes. A hungry carnivorous animal would then be released into the arena and maul the criminal until he ate the criminal alive. This was especially rare because it was one of the most frowned upon events in the gladiator time.
I keep trying to conceive that death is from above. No time. I get mine and make no excuses, waste of precious breath. No time. The sun shines on everyone, love yourself to death. So you gotta fire up, you gotta let go, you never be loved till you make it alone. You gotta face up, you gotta get low, you never know the time till you get too low.
The Demetrius had 2 swords and wore only a light helmet that fit tightly. They depended mostly on skill and speed to win battles. They had leather straps on their arms and legs. The Thracian used a curved sword and a small shield. They wore light armor by having a light helmet with feathers and a leather strap to protect their sword arm. They were also equipped with a metal leg armor that went up to the thighs. The Retiarius was equipped with a trident, a dagger, and a net. They depended on trapping their enemies with a net and then piercing them with a trident. They were lightly armored, having only a metal arm guard to protect the arm that held the trident.
I thought you disappeared.
The Gallus was a heavily armed gladiator that resembled warriors from Gaul. They used swords or occasionally a lance and had a smooth bell-shaped helmet. On their lower left leg they used a metal armor, and to protect his arms he wore a leather strap on his forearm. The Gallus was equipped with a long rectangular shaped shield that was effective against most direct attacks.
Never letting go, and like it hard with my baby.